Hey everyone, in today's video we're going to learn how to make this cute baby shower cake. So I've got a 5-inch thin board and I'm just going to take some mini marshmallows and some Rice Krispies. Now you probably want double the amount of Rice Krispies to marshmallows. Just heat it in the microwave for about 20 seconds and then just mix that together. Now it is really sticky and you are going to need some tricks for your hands if you let it cool down a little bit first before you handle it, because as you'll see, I wasn't patient enough for that and it is really sticky. So just make sure your hands are covered well with the Trex and you won't end up in a sticky mess like I just did. So if it does start sticking to your hands as bad as this, just put some more Trex on your hand and that should help bring it together and stop it from sticking. So you can see I've got a little bit more Trex and I'm just pushing it into place, wanting to create sort of like a half semicircle that's going to be the baby's bottom. You need to make sure that you really squish it down and you put a lot of pressure on it, because as it's drying or as it's cooling, it can expand a little bit and we don't want it to come any bigger or come out of shape more than what it is. Also want to push it together more so that we can make sure there's not as many lumps in there and it needs to be kind of smooth. Once you're happy with the rough shape, we're just going to trim off the excess just around the edge, and then we're going to actually cover this with some ganache. Now we'll put a link in the description box below for a ganache recipe, and I do have another tutorial on how to make ganache as well. So that's the kind of shape that we're aiming for. Doesn't have to be anything too neat at this stage. And then I've just got some baking paper and I've just put it on there, and we're just going to spread the ganache over the top. Now I've just put a little bit of ganache on the paper and then stuck that down to it just to give it a little bit of something to hold on to. Now we're just going to like roughly put this on, and then as you can see I've got one of my smoothers for the cake and I'm just going to use that to smooth over. Now these are really good because they're flexible and so it allows us to put that curve on. You want to make sure that this is covered as much as possible because we want it to be really smooth. When we put any fondant over this, we don't want to be seeing all the lumps and bumps from the Rice Krispie mix that we've made. So it does need to be, filling in the little gaps. You can put it in the fridge once you've put a crumb coat on and then re-go over it again. I was just really impatient to get it done, so you can just see that I'm just smoothing over and taking any of the excess off. Now once you're happy with the coverage that you've got, if you grab a cup with some boiled water, and what we're going to do is we're just going to use a method called hot knife. So we're going to take our spatula, dip it in the hot water, and we're just going to use that to smooth over some of the ganache so that it's not got the jagged edges or the rough edges or anything like that. Just makes it easier when you're applying the fondant that you're not going to see the lines underneath. It doesn't take too long to do this. Now once you're happy, I've got a cake here, an 8-inch cake this one is, and I've just put a little bit of ganache on the top and we're just going to place that on top. The ganache is going to secure it to the cake. Now obviously this is for a girl, that's why it's covered in pink. If you was doing a boy you would do blue, or if it was a gender reveal I would likely do yellow. So I've just got some white fondant and I'm just going to push this around the top and secure it. So again I've got a flexi smoother and I'm just smoothing out the edges. Now I covered this cake the night before, so the fondant has had time to dry. Had I have covered this just now, I wouldn't be using a knife on the top of the fondant because you would see the lines from where the knife has touched the top of the cake. So this has had 24 hours to dry and firm up at the top. So when you're trimming the excess off, we're going to trim around and then we're just going to use the knife just to tuck in the fondant underneath the baby bum. Now you're not going to see much of this, but the part that you are going to see, we want it to give that tucked in effect. So I'm just using my knife just to go around the edge of the cake and trim off the excess. If you leave fingerprints in there or any kind of marks on the top, you can just go over it with your flexi smoother, and that's going to smooth out any lines that we've got. We are going to cover this with a blanket material, so it doesn't have to be too neat, but the part that you see, which is the bit at the front, does need to be quite smooth. So once you've got to this point, we're going to colour some fondant separately. Now, as you can see, I've mixed it for quite a while. It's gone quite stretchy, but this is the Renshaw's Extra. And I've just coloured it with the Sugar Flare Skin Tone and the Sugar Flare Chestnut. We're just going to roll some fat sausages and cut them at an angle. Now, you just want to push this into place. I've not used any water because it won't need it, but you can use edible glue or a little bit of water if you wanted. Once you've done one side, we're going to go ahead and match that again with the other. So we're just, again, rolling out the sausage and then trimming off at an angle so that that attaches to the side of the bun properly. So just push it into place and making sure that the join from the leg onto the bum is actually quite smooth, because we don't want to see too much of that when we put the blanket over. So to make the foot, I've taken, again, the same fondant, rolled a fat teardrop, and we're just going to thin at one side and thicker at the other, and then put in some lines just for the creases. You can see I'm pushing the top of the leg back so that the foot rests quite nice on there. Be careful that it's not going to affect the side of the foot either, the side of the leg. And once you've done that, we're going to do the same to the other one. So again, we're going to roll sort of like a fat teardrop shape. So you can see there, I just need to make it a little bit bigger to match in with the other one. So it's a fat teardrop, flatten it a little bit, and then just using your finger just to go in at the side to create the shape of the foot. Using the scriber needle to make the 3 lines and then placing it on top. So this is what you should have so far. Once you're happy with the shape and how the legs fit together, we're then going to go on to make the toes. So with the toes, I'm going to roll out 10 rough shapes. So obviously these are subject to change because I always make everything too big. But if you generally roll out 5 for each foot, then you can sort of get them the similar size for each one. So obviously they need to get smaller as they go along. And then we're just going to attach these to the foot. So what I've tended to do is always attach the biggest one first and then go down to the smaller one. Now you can see I am adjusting the size of the little toes, and then just with the scriber tool I'm just tucking in the join, because we don't want them to blend into each other, we want them to remain separate. But also I'm just going to tuck in the bottom of the toe as well. That stops the fondant from just lying on top and sort of gives it like a rounded look. It looks a little bit more natural. I'm just sticking these on with a little bit of water. So you can see I'm just tucking in the bottom there. You could use edible glue if you wanted, but I've always found that water just works as well. So once you've done one side and you're happy with that, we're going to repeat the same thing for the other side. So again, exactly the same method, just sticking with a little bit of water and tucking it in at the bottom. So once we've done this, we're then going to make the blanket for the top. So I've just taken some more of my pink and I'm going to roll it out quite thin. Now I've textured this and I've done that before I laid over the top. So I've just laid it over, so I've got a rough idea of the shape and size that's needed. And I'm just using my quilting tool just to create a pattern on the top. It doesn't have to be too neat because you're not really going to notice the actual proper pattern once you've put it on, because you are going to have different angles. So before you attach this with any water or edible glue, place it on top first and make sure that you get the position right. Once you've put the water on, it does make it difficult to move. So you can see I'm just tucking it around the back, and you want it to leave it quite frilly around the front, so it doesn't have to be all stuck down, because just like how blanket would be on a real baby. So I'm just sticking it in certain places, and then I'm just going to use some scissors just to trim off the excess at the back. So this doesn't again have to be too neat, because what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this around and then we're going to tuck underneath. So you can see I'm just trimming it off roughly, and then we're just going to push it back into place. You could use a knife if you wanted. So you can see I'm just trimming it off and then I'm tucking it under. And then again with the other side. So if you wanted to change the colour of the baby, make it a little bit darker, you could add in some dark brown, or you could add in a little bit more of the chestnut colour. If you wanted to make it paler, I would leave the chestnut out. So I'm just making sure it's nice and neat. So once you've finished, you should have something that looks like this. So I hope you guys have enjoyed today's video. If you have, please hit the thumbs up button down below, and don't forget to click the subscribe button. And if you want to see more of my videos, please click the links on the screen now. Thank you.